Is up, everybody? Welcome to Comic Book Club. I'm Alex.
I'm Justin.
I'm Pete.
And we are coming to you live from a couple of places on the internet. We're live on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Instagram, Kick, and of course, LinkedIn. Kick. Still looking for a job, everybody. If you could help me out.
Is Kick like LinkedIn for kids? Like if you want like a...
Yeah, it's if you want to hire a kid. If you want some child labor, you got to go to Kick.
Nice.
Oh, boy. Oh, man.
We're helpful. I don't know. Kick, we were off Kick for a while, but now we're kicking it. We're helpful.
I think so. Do you know what else is helpful? Is having a healthy knowledge of science fiction and the whole genre. And totally coincidentally, that's what we're going to be talking about today here on
Alex,
the podcast.
Wow. Really good stuff.
Thank you. I've been working.
Did you hire someone from Kick to write that for you?
Oh, boy.
I did. Is that a problem? I paid them in candy. In any case, I'm very excited because we have a whole Sci-Fi Roundtable discussion for you today. We have three amazing guests. Our fourth guest, Taki Soma, who writes the book Alienated, unfortunately was under the weather and couldn't make it. But that's okay. We have three great guests still for you, and I'm going to welcome them in one by one. First up, he is the writer of Outer Lands and Eden. Ladies and gentlemen, Matt Arnold. Matt, welcome. Hello. And then next up...
Three guests almost as good as Taki.
Yes. Well, as people are going to see, we have a lot of M's on this squad, which I'm very excited about, including the writer of Boxed. Welcome back to the show, Marc Sable. Hello.
Hey. Hello.
Thanks for having me.
Excited to see you again. And last and certainly not least, we have from the Adventures of Ulysses Monarch, the last issue of which is out on Comixology today. Ladies and gentlemen, Marc Guggenheim. Hello.
Yeah.
Hello.
Oh, no.
That's sci-fi. That's some sci-fi speaking right there.
Your audio is a little crackly, Marc. It's a little crackly. I don't know what's going on.
It's
there.
making it. It's
whatever you said. I'm sure it was awesome and very funny. Oh no. Uh-oh. All right. Well, we'll work that out in a second. In the meantime, while Marc is figuring this out, why don't we go in the opposite direction? And I'm going to ask you guys to expand on your books a little bit. Matt, why don't we start with you? Can you talk to us a little bit about the books that you have with Comixology? Outer Lands and Eden are both collected. They're both on stands now. But tell us a little bit more about the books, just so we have a basis for discussion.
Eden is a science fiction story about characters get cryogenically frozen, prisoners. In the future, they cryogenically freeze prisoners. And it's about this senator and her husband who are wrongfully convicted, and they wake up during a prison break, crack out of their shells there, and realize that it's been thousands of years, and the only people left alive on the planet are all these criminals. We got to restart society with the worst of society,
like Australia.
A little bit.
Whoa, guy! Whoa!
That's sort of the origin of Australia in a way.
Yeah, you took the words right out of one of my characters' mouths in he says, "It's okay. Isn't this how Australia started?" Yeah, that's in development at Fox right now for a series in development for 2026. So fingers crossed there. Awesome. And my next book that's out currently, it just came out on the 26th of August, is Outer Lands, and I describe it as a sword and sandal sci-fi. So it's about a Greek city-state and a prince that discovers a massive conspiracy about Atlantis.
Awesome. Very cool.
Nice.
Very cool. Marc, why don't we go over to you to talk about Boxed?
Thank you. Yeah. So Boxed is I describe it as a sci-fi thriller, or it's an AI thriller. The pitch has sort of been, it's Blade Runner meets Silence of the Lambs. It's about, in the near future, there's a government agency that's responsible for regulating AI, specifically like super intelligent AI, and the main character is an agent. His name is Frank Savage, and he is tasked with what's called boxing AI, which is, instead of destroying it, containing it so that AI can't get out, and super intelligent AI can't get out and hurt other people or take control of the internet, that kind of thing. When the CDC's AI winds up just becoming self-aware and doing all sorts of bad things, he's forced to team up with his ex-girlfriend, who happens to be an AI that he boxed. So she's kind of the sort of reverse Hannibal Lecter that he has to team up with to stop this Hippocrates, which is this the CDC AI. So it's got AI, it's got pandemic, all kinds of really lovely, pleasant
hot topics.
I love the catchphrase. It's the reverse Hannibal Lecter.
I don't want to correct you, Mark, but technically a reverse Hannibal Lecter would be somebody who throws up full human beings.
I meant I should have said gender swapped rather than reverse. That's true, but that's a good idea for another book.
I
barfed his liver with a nice Chianti. What you're saying, Alex?
And Marc Guggenheim, Mark G, I guess we'll call you on this podcast unless you don't want us to do. Why don't you tell us? Yeah, tell us about Ulysses Monarch.
Well, Ulysses Monarch is basically a shameless ripoff of the Indiana Jones franchise. An Indiana Jones character. It's an adventure. He's got a sidekick, this 13-year-old girl. And the ancient civilizations that he's, excavating are our own, because it takes place in the year 3026. So it's in the far, far, far future. And now, Earth's still a thing, but, we've gone the way of the Mayans. He's having his adventures in the far future. So it's a mix between, Star Wars and Indiana Jones.
Yeah. These are obviously a wide array of different books, so it's hard to be like, hey, give us the common ingredient in them. But just to start with the broadest question possible, since that's kind of the point of this, is what do you think is the most important ingredient to crafting a sci-fi story? Is it the science part? Is it the mixing it with fiction part? Is it something else? When you think about the genre, where do you start?
I think it starts with the idea, not the idea for the story, but what's the idea behind the story? What's the the idea that the writer or the author is poking at? I think sci-fi is really great about holding up a mirror sort of to society, but it's a mirror you can hold up because no one really thinks you're talking about society. They think you're talking about this fictional galaxy far, far away, or something in the far future. So I think it's really what's at the core of the idea for the story. That to me is what motivates really good sci-fi.
For me, I'd say a lot of it is about I don't know if we're going in order or just jumping around, but
get loose.
Okay. I come from a physics background, so for me, the science being plausible gets me. It's sort of the first place I go is could this really happen? And if it did, what would it look like? And then I kind of start from there. So I start from the scientific idea and then build the world out for what the consequence of that would be. And that's how I make it fun for myself, is because I have to give myself those rules a little bit. It's how plausible can we make this?
Science first, then fiction. Sort of vegetables first, and then.
I think so.
How dare you call it the vegetables?
I mean, I like science.
Yeah.
I like vegetables, Pete. We can like all this stuff. I'm not a candy freak like you.
Man.
Mark
Shots
S.
fired.
I probably fall somewhere in the middle. I think it's so interesting. You have a science background, I don't, but I spent up until pretty much this year in the current administration, one of my other jobs besides writing comics has been working as a futurist. For various think tanks where they've basically brought me in to help actual real scientists and people in the government think about what the future might be like, and help them think creatively about what the future might be like. So a lot of my sci-fi stories come from that, and I think a lot of it comes from thinking about worst case terror scenarios, worst case scenarios, not just terror, but and listening to sort of what people who are working, whether they're in science or they're policymakers, what are they worried about, and maybe what should they be worried about, and I take it from there. And not all science fiction needs to be dystopian or at all, but I definitely, that's sort of been my approach in recent books.
So you're saying this administration isn't concerned about the future at all? Total side comment. Don't need to get into that.
I would like to ask about how you become an expert in what messed up things are going to happen in the future. Have you just thought about it a lot and like came up with crazy scenarios? Have you been to the future? Have been back? Like, how do you show up at the government and be like, let me tell you about some crazy ideas I have?
So if you can permit me, yes, I'll try to make this a short story. Like, it's a really good question. I had read about in the New York Times, God, this is over a decade ago, maybe 15 years ago, about that the government, like after 9/11, the Department of Homeland Security, after 9/11 was considered like a lot, it kept being called it's a failure of imagination. So people in the Department of Homeland Security were like, well, why don't we get imaginative people to join a think tank that we're starting to come up with worst case terror scenarios before the terrorists do. And this was a thing for a while. I know there were some, I was not a part of this, but there were some well-known novelists, screenwriters that were all involved in this. And so I had the idea, about 15 years ago, I did a book for Boom called Unthinkable, which was taking that idea of like, well, what if a real, if a writer joined this real life, a fictional writer joined this think tank and came up with worst case terror scenarios. And then what if somehow those worst case terror scenarios started to come true? So I wrote this book, and aside from it also getting me detained by the TSA because, which is really is a true story. This is again
put you on a list.
But it got the notice of people in that world, and so they kind of reached out to me, and it's been a really interesting thing. I haven't done it this administration just because of DOGE and everything has just cut back on a lot of governmental programs. But over the years, like it's been really cool. Like I've worked with people that are astronauts and Navy SEALs. I always have imposter syndrome being in a room with them. I'm like, yes, and I write comic books. But but it's been really, actually, especially during whatever your politics are, because I've done it in a couple administrations, like. It's made me feel better that there are people in the military and the scientific community and the intelligence community that do really think a lot about issues in the future, and ones that you wouldn't think are necessarily like typical military issues, like climate change, for instance. You wouldn't think that people in the military care about that. Yeah, actually they do, because those are places that are places that are experiencing climate change are going to become unstable, and that's where they might be deployed to. So Did you
hear about Hegseth's speech literally today?
Yes.
I don't think that comment is accurate anymore.
Yeah. Tough news today on that one.
He was literally telling the top generals that we don't care about climate change anymore.
We'll cut that part out in case he's listening. Just kidding. No.
I mean, I think like the point that we're getting at is Marc, Sable. Yes, they are thinking about this in the future. Marc G, you're absolutely correct that they're shutting down a lot of this stuff. But this actually like segues nicely to the thing that I wanted to pivot off of with what you were saying, Marc Guggenheim, about the world outside your window, because a lot of people are missing that these days. I don't want to say necessarily these days, maybe this will go out forever, but I feel like more and more frequently you see things like people being like, God, I'm so tired about Star Trek getting woke. And everybody's like, have you seen literally the first episode of Star Trek from like the 1960s? Or The Boys, or any sort of piece of media? So my question for you as creators is, how do you modulate that if that's something you're going for? How do you make sure you are reflecting that world outside of your window and it's clear, but at the same time, you're telling an entertaining story? This is...
Well, look, I grew up on, shows like LA Law and Picket Fences and Stand Elsewhere and Hill Street Blues, and they were about the world outside your window. That was back when we can tell stories about things that matter. Mm-hmm. We can't do that anymore. Even the sort of the Star Trekian veil of, okay, cover it up with science fiction and you can get away with it. Our corporate overlords are getting hip to that. They're catching on to that trick. So I think it's just harder than ever, quite frankly, to tell stories about real things.
I mean, sorry, just to follow up on that though, do you feel like, do you need to push it even harder then? Do you need to make it even blunter to get that point across?
Well, the problem is that to make it blunter, you risk words. So I think you've got to go more subtle, and sneak it past them.
Well, I think it's interesting. It feels like that's where the science fiction then gets, like you're saying, you go deeper into it, or you're sort of like doubling up your premise a little bit, or adding.
I guess we're saying the same thing, just coming at from glasses half full versus half empty, sort of thing.
Yeah.
It's so funny to me. Like you talk about corporate overlords, and it's like you look at like the science fiction of the 1980s, with Blade Runner and with Alien and a lot of comic book stuff like American Flag. The idea of the mega corporation basically taking the place of the government and sort of being in control of everyone's lives, that was science fiction.
Yeah.
It feels a whole lot like science fact to me today.
Well, Matt Arnold.
We've had some futurists in those early meetings at Alien and Blade Runner.
Yeah, clearly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Matt, I'm curious to hear from you from your work, because you are looking at different periods, literally, and different focal points than Marc Guggenheim and Marc Sable are doing. How does that affect your work, if at all?
Well, we're talking about the sort of political aspect. It's funny because both Eden and Outer Lands don't overtly have a kind of political bent. They're dealing with issues that I think are very universal and timeless, but they're about just the human condition. And it's funny how so many things that we do that are universal are now becoming political topics, and there's sort of people are reading into that. Like with Outer Lands, I was asked a lot of questions about my political, what I want, like what a political thing I was trying to get across, and I was like, no, I'm just trying to talk about how like history is cyclical, and like we're destined to repeat the mistakes. I wasn't trying to make a comment on those mistakes, but I just think that's kind of an interesting way to go about it. With me, I like the mashup of historical stuff and science fiction. A lot of times you find parallels, and I think a lot of science fiction seems the most authentic when you can use a template from the past. Like, for instance, the one everyone knows obviously is that Star Wars is like American Revolution, right? Like you can use those old templates, and it makes your science fiction feel a lot more grounded and authentic and real. So I was playing with that, in a big way with Outer Lands, is sort of showing how these worlds are mirroring each other in a strange way, and how they will always repeat.
Just to take a conversational swerve away from this for a moment, I did want to ask you guys, because these are comics, art obviously is an enormous part of the equation, 50%, if not more, depending on how you're considering it. So obviously you have the script, you have the idea, you're crafting the sci-fi world in a certain way, but then you're hooking up with an artist and actually seeing what it looks like. So I'm sure every case is different, as it always is with any comic and graphic novel, but how much in these specific cases, in these books that we're talking about, did seeing the art start to change how you viewed the world, if at all? And Marc Sable, I guess I'll go over to you first. I scared you. I'm sorry.
Yes. Also, by the way, if I'm not sitting back, I'm not technophobic. I'm not sitting back from this on purpose. I'm visiting my mom, so I'm in a different setup.
It looks great.
You're showing off a lot of hardwood. It's very cool. You and Matt. It's a real flex.
That's my bar mitzvah picture in the background with my.
Aww.
So everybody's getting a real look into my life. So okay, and the question was the art. Well, it's funny because my bar mitzvah theme was Marvel Comics, and it was we had T-shirts, but I wish I was wearing it. It wouldn't fit me anymore. But it said I had Marvel in all caps, marvelous time at Mark's bar mitzvah, and it was me in a Iron Man costume, but without the helmet, and then with like thick, huge glasses, Coke bottle that I had to wear because I couldn't wear contact. Anyway, it's a good question.
Wow.
Art.
Nice. Thank you for starting by sharing that before you got into
Yeah.
it. That was
That's
really
all right.
Should we real quick
Slice
go
of
around
life.
and talk about our bar mitzvah themes?
Oh, I'd love that.
Yeah.
I don't remember what mine was. I'm sorry.
You don't remember?
Come on, don't
I don't think I
lie.
had a
That's not-
theme. It was just bar mitzvah.
You just
The
you
theme
know-
is bar mitzvah. I don't. That doesn't
that
pass.
doesn't-
I remember two of my friends roasted me at it.
For not
they
having
came
a
up
theme?
and did like a legit 5 to 10 minute long roast of me, and I was like,
That's
I don't like this.
Love that.
And then you went into comedy.
Yeah, there you go. That's how it happened. Anyway, Mark,
Mark.
we're going to talk about
I
art.
would say, yeah. The art. Let me just shout the artist out first. Is Jeremy Hahn did the art, who's tremendous.
Yes.
And as well as Nick Filardi is the colorist. I mean, anytime, look, it's my favorite part of doing comics. I would say, like, as great as it is to have something published, as great as it is to come on here and talk about it, is seeing the art come in. And I have to say, like, I've just been really fortunate. I've been doing this, God, it's been 20 years this summer. Like, I've never had art come in that I'm unhappy with. Like, it's, and I would say usually it's not what I imagine, but often it's better than what I imagine. In this particular case with Boxed, Jeremy, I just can't say enough. Like, I almost want to say he worked too hard on it. Like, the amount of detail he put in, like, I gave him some reference, but like the amount of detail he put into each panel, he did the pencils digitally, but like, it's all hand inked. It's something I'm proud of. It's like, it's a comic about AI that was just really just done lovingly by hand by everybody involved. And so, but yeah, it does, once you see the characters that, you have something in your head, but it's like the minute art starts to come in, I just start thinking I see them differently, and they start feeling differently, and maybe in ways, like, aside from their appearance that I can't even necessarily put into words, but I just start envisioning it. And if it's a project where the art starts coming in midway, which is most of the time, like, I will start writing to the art, like somebody might write to an actor, and I love that. I love that collaboration.
Cool. That's great.
Mark G, any thoughts there?
Well, I wrote The Adventures of Ulysses Monarch specifically for the artist Harvey Talabau. Harvey and I had done an X-Men arc together for Marvel back in the day, and we wanted to create our own project, and this was an idea that I felt would really, play to Harvey's strengths. So, even from jump, it was written, with Harvey in mind, just knowing his style and having worked with him in the past and knowing how incredibly detailed he is with everything. And so it was, it wasn't like the art came in and I started making adjustments. The scripts were based on, the fact that Harvey was going to be drawing.
Yeah. And Matt, what about you?
Well, like these guys, I only have 2 books, so I have more of a limited experience. But my artist, David John Felice, was absolutely fantastic. I just was so impressed with everything. And Mark knows this a lot when we're writing for like television or film. We don't get the same amount of control to like pick our angles of the shots and the lighting, as much as the acting that we want to sort of direct. It feels a little bit more like a directing job in a way. But I think what was great with me and David is we had a pretty good idea of what we wanted to do. And I had my script finished before he started. So I don't think I wrote toward the characters. But I think that he was able to really get a hold of that personality of those characters really, really well. And I both of my artists have been Italian, and there's just something about their art where they're really great at just human expression and just the characters aren't always so idealized. There's a lot of characters that look like, weird and spindly or like imperfectly, wonderfully imperfect. And I just felt like he did a great job of just taking the words there and figuring out what character that he created would really, embody it. And so I kind of went the other way for me, but I couldn't be more pleased with what he came up with.
That's awesome.
You touched. Oh, go ahead, Justin.
I was just going to say, there's a lot of sci-fi stories. There's a lot of sci-fi stories in comics. When you guys are sort of putting together your idea, how do you know it's ready to be sort of the one that you want to really take out or make happen somehow? What is that? What is the special sauce, and how do you get there for something like this?
Well, for me, I do a handful of things, which is like primarily TV writing and film and stuff. But when I think of an idea, I've been trying to be more honest with like where should this idea live first? Like for Outer Lands, when I had this idea, it started with this image I could get out of my head of a Spartan warrior walking through a post-apocalyptic New York. And I just liked that image. It was just like a poster image that felt like it needed to be something. And it was such a visual idea that I thought, well, if I just pitch this as a TV show, is it really going to come across to anyone? Or if I wrote it as a script first, are they going to get like the detail that I'm seeing? Or I could write it as a novel, and I have time to write a lot of stuff, but that's a lot of character. Like it really felt like this one was like, I really want to see it first as a comic. I want people to know what that world looks like and those two worlds look like and the smashing up of them and how they conflict. And I obviously have just given away a big twist in the book, but I think that when I was writing it, I was like, yeah, this is where this belongs. Like this is the first expression of this. And if it goes somewhere else, becomes TV or film or something else, then it's okay because this is where it started to live first. And that's just how I try to think when I'm coming up with an idea.
Cool. I want to ask you guys about adaptation a little bit, just because this came up here. I know you just touched on it, Matt, but like when you're taking something like this again, and potentially, are you thinking ahead at all to the TV version, the movie version, anything like that? Or do you feel like the story that you've written, when it comes to sci-fi, when it comes to this broad canvas, has really hit its ideal form in the comic book form?
I'm really curious to hear what both of these guys think about that and how they do it, because I'd love to know how they go about it. I mean, personally, I think when I write stuff, I do just have inherently the sort of the structures that are endemic to film and television. Like when you read the book, it really feels like a season arc of a show or something. And I think that's just because of the way that I'm used to the things that I like, which are great TV shows and movies. And I think I just do that naturally. I don't think about it like, oh, I'm writing this so that I can adapt it. I just think, oh, that's kind of naturally the way I'm going to tell this story because it's me and because I love this kind of stuff. But I'd love to hear how you guys go about it.
Yeah, I'm very similar in the sense that like I can't divorce myself from the 3-act structure. Not because the 3-act structure is what's typical in film. I think it's because the 3-act structure is fundamentally what's in all good narrative. It's those Aristotelian, sort of principles at work. I will say, like, I never write with a comic book with an eye towards adapting it. Partially because I think if you take your eye off the ball, the fans can tell. If the thing is, if the comic book is just a movie or a TV show in comic book form, I think the market has gotten hip to that. Number one. Number two, I think you don't, make it the best comic book possible. And for me, I mean, it's funny. I've been hired to adapt, a couple of graphic novels of mine, like Last Flight Out and Too Dead to Die. But my sort of weird thing is, I don't really want to. Like, I've told the story, I've scratched the itch. I'm not really all that eager to dive back in and sort of retell the story in a different medium. In the instances when I've done it because, well, they pay me money.
Yeah.
But it left to my own devices, I would much rather see another writer, take a crack at adapting it.
Sorry, but that's so. I very much relate to that. The one time I got to adapt one of my own books, which is Graveyard of Empires, and I was very glad that they let me do it. But and it never got made. But just I got sick. Like 2 drafts into the screenplay, it was really like 7 drafts because of how much I'd worked on the comic. Yeah. I will say for Boxed, it's a little unusual maybe for other writers, although for me, this is not the first time it's happened, where this story took place started in 2 different, made it through 2 other mediums before it found comics. So the first was a short story. So clearly I wasn't trying to do it for the money. And I should say that's the short story, I believe, is in whatever I wrote of the short story is in the collected edition that Mad Cave put out. But so it's like back matter. But then I wrote it as a pilot, and look, I can't say like had somebody bought the pilot, like would I have come back to it? But it was nobody did. It got some interest, but there was another show that was similar. But like the stories, it wasn't. And I usually get very suspicious when I hear, oh, somebody's turning, a screenplay that didn't sell into a comic. Like, sometimes maybe that works out great, but often like as a comic reader who loves the medium, like that's why I'm hesitant to share this. But I felt like it was more like, oh, I really feel passionately about this story. I talked to Jeremy about it, and ultimately, it's the comic. It starts out similar, but is very different. For one thing, I wanted it to feel like, although it could continue, like I wanted it to feel like a self-contained story and not a pilot. Also, there are just things that just work that I've worked in the medium long enough to know that there are some things that are going to work on TV that won't work on comics and vice versa. Like, so the original bad AI in it was something that's a real AI called ATSAC, which is the traffic control system in LA, which is an interesting thing. But like, if you think about it, like showing traffic stopping like in a moving picture is a lot more visually interesting than like, what's the difference between traffic moving and traffic stopping when you have a still image?
Yeah.
And also,
by the way, I live in Los Angeles and I can't tell the difference.
It's same. So, but I will say, I do think for me it was valuable to go through those different things where it was like, if I hadn't written the short story, I don't think I would have gotten into the heads of the characters if I had started it as either a screenplay, a teleplay or a comic script. And getting a chance to work it out where to sort of make mistakes in the pilot that were like the artist wasn't waiting on me. I could it gave me, I think, that process. Now, if you ask me to do another draft of it, like I might go nuts, but like to me, it's a sweet spot with it.
I think this is anecdotal, but I feel like with the downturn in TV, it feels like more people are just making comics now, and there's not that sort of glut gold rush of people like, if I just make this into comic real fast, I can sell to TV also real fast. Now, one element there has sort of gone away. Hopefully not for permanent, but I think it's actually made it less of a stigma, saying that you're sort of moving through different mediums with a project, to me.
I think the television industry has responded with, well, here's a solution. We just won't make television shows.
Yeah, gotcha. you go make comics. We don't care about anything.
The joke's on you.
I got it. I actually wanted to ask Marc G a question because sometimes when you're writing your own stuff, and you too, Marc, when you're writing your own stuff, a lot of times what they'll ask you is like, what is your take on this? It's like, well, my take is the book. Like that's my take. I wrote it that way. But I found with Eden, my take was basically to slow it down and to tell all the spaces in between the story, because with a graphic novel, you're moving so fast through the plot to get there. It was like, okay, I'm really slowing down now, and that's where I've had the fun as a writer, is like exploring. But I'd like to know, you guys, how you went about adapting that. Like, did you try to go for a take different than your book and try to say, okay, I guess I have to give you something different? Or did you just try to give them what the book was in a different medium? And was that tricky for you? Because I'm kind of right in the middle of that process now.
Well, with Too Dead to Die, it was funny. I sold we sold the graphic novel to Universal off of a pitch that was basically beat for beat the comic. And then when I got into the draft, the producer and I realized, we sold this, huge, massive spectacle, that you can do in a comic book, but we're supposed to bring in this movie for like $40 million. You can't tell the story in $40 million. So it was the budget target that we were trying to hit that really necessitated an almost wholesale change in the story. I would say the story is actually completely different in my script versus the graphic novel. Just the premise, elderly James Bond, daughter he never knew he had. That remained intact, but everything else, had to change just so that we could tell a story. Everyone always says comic books have a limitless budget, at least in terms of the visuals. True. But that limitless budget becomes very limited when you're working, for a studio. With Last Flight Out, I developed it first as a pilot, for Netflix, and then we're going to do it as a movie. And when I developed it as a pilot, I did make some changes, but they were changes more for what Netflix wanted. They sort of almost the way, if you gave them an outline and they had notes on the outline, it's sort of like they had notes on the graphic novel.
Right.
And wanted, especially in it being a pilot, especially, things at the beginning of the story coming into it in a different way, et cetera, et cetera. In certain respects, it's very, very faithful to the graphic novel, but certainly Netflix had required some changes.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because Jeremy Hahn, for people who are watching who somehow don't know, he is both a writer and an artist. So we've been very good friends for a long time and collaborated in various ways. And so when I showed him the pilot and I talked about it when we were talking about working on something, he had notes that were good, not just as an artist, but as a, and I remember I'm trying to think the specific things other than, we both agreed the sort of the AI that was the villain in the piece needed to be bigger. We wanted it to be self-contained. I know that, and I also knew okay, let me make sure there's interesting visuals for him to draw. But it was also, limiting the number of characters that, so that we could really focus, that he could really pick some and focus on, and the audience could relate to, and just giving him space. I mean, I think, yes, you have an unlimited budget in terms of as Mark was saying, in terms of you can put as many spaceships as you want in a panel or whatever, but you only have a certain number of pages, right? And every line of dialogue, not only it's not only the pages, it's it literally covers the art. It was one of the first things I learned, writing a comic, and it's I remember just the first editor I ever had was just just pointed it out to me that you're just it's something that doesn't, somebody can talk as much as they want in a movie or in a television show, and you can turn the volume off, but you're not missing the scenery. And it's oh, artists are working really hard on this, and many readers are coming just for the art or largely for the art. So, we're trying to get out of I'm trying to get out of the artist's way. I'm trying to give them things that are interesting to draw and are not just two people talking in a room, which might play on TV, but it's just not going to play in a comic.
Yeah.
I want to take a little bit of a swerve and take it way, way back to talk about. Well, I'd love to hear from you guys. What was your formative piece or pieces of sci-fi? What is the first thing that you remember where you felt oh, I love this genre in general, that really just sold you on it? Matt Arnold, maybe to just start with you. I don't know why I keep saying your full name.
I think it was when I thought that I could use my Jedi powers to pull stuff to me.
Nice.
When I was a kid. I tried really, really hard, and I thought I saw a flashlight move, and I felt I figured out the secret to life. You just gotta believe in these things. And I think Star Wars was very formative for a lot of young kids, but that was the first time I kind of saw that there was something else. Like I said, a lot of my life is from a science perspective too, but it was really that early sort of Star Wars. And then when I got a more sophisticated palette, it was Alien and Blade Runner and all those that we've mentioned here. I just got so enraptured with those worlds and those places and times. It was addictively so. But yeah, I would say Star Wars was probably my first touch.
Mark S., what about you?
Yeah, I mean, Star Wars for me as well. I think maybe just generationally, it hit me at the right moment, and just a lot of things that maybe you might not think of as sci-fi, but just again, I just happened to grow up at a time where G.I. Joe and Transformers. G.I. Joe always had. I love the way that it was, and when I'm talking about G.I. Joe, I'm talking about the cartoon, but largely I'm talking about Larry Hama's run on it.
Hell yeah.
And just as a writer in general, it was the first like, continuing story I saw, and it felt more adult. Like it was a kid's toy, but it felt very adult, but it also just felt very grounded, but with a science fiction element to it. I mean, you wouldn't call it a sci-fi book, but there were sci-fi elements in it. I always loved that mix of feeling like it was grounded, and I think that carried through. And even like later on, I would read Tom Clancy, and that's not sci-fi, but like, I'm maybe not as much of a fan of his work as I was when I was younger. But yeah, and then again, like I think somehow I was too young. I watched Blade Runner and Alien when I was too young, and same thing with reading Neuromancer. But I think somehow those things stuck in my brain, and when I think of like, the things that I aspire to, that's like a sort of holy trinity for me.
And Mark G, what about you?
I hate to give the unoriginal answer, but it is the truth. Star Wars. I was 6 years old when I saw it, and just like totally changed my life. But I will also say, like, before Star Wars, there were comic books, and it was actually really comic books that introduced me to science fiction. And sometimes it was like, sort of be hard science fiction in the sense like it was a sci-fi tale, but like the Fantastic Four is, has a lot of elements of science fiction in it. Superman, Superman's whole origin story, very sci-fi. So I think comic books influenced me greatly.
I feel like comics, like Star Wars is so universal, but you can only watch it so many times before it's just tattooed on your brain. And comics were always the like fresh injection of like just maximalist ideas every week and month.
Absolutely.
Mark, just to get back to something you were mentioning earlier, your book deals with AI, and there are some realistic aspects, but for the most part, it's sort of like the fantasy ideal of AI that doesn't actually exist in the real world. I'm just curious. I know this book came out a couple of years ago at this point. Have you given the backlash against AI, have you had any trouble selling this at all?
And do you have an AI girlfriend or AI ex-girlfriend?
Okay, I'm gonna answer both those questions, but I'm gonna the first one I'll say no, I haven't had backlash. I was worried about it. I was actually more worried about, because we're dealing with the CDC, like that there'd be pandemic stuff and that people are going to think I'm an anti-vaxxer. I'm not. And look, don't come to me for don't come to me for like medical advice anyway. But
I get all my advice from comic books.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean,
I have a lot of follow-up questions.
I'll help you with the hangnail. But
yes, thank you.
But I think with AI, I think the main thing has just been when I started. I wrote that book. Wrote the pilot was like pre-pandemic. Started the comic was written the summer of 2020. Was like mainly when I wrote it, and it just is, putting the pandemic stuff aside, like it's crazy how much AI has changed, and I feel good about sometimes I feel like, well, okay, it's not a realistic AI in the sense of like, I don't know if in our lifetime we'll see a sentient AI, but I did on a certain level. That's that goes back to I feel like Frankenstein might be the first science fiction story, right? Like, so
right.
The idea of like bringing something to life that you no longer have control of, I think that's a universal, timeless thing. But it's something that I've thought a lot about. Is just like, oh my god, in just the few years since I wrote it, and even the few years since it came out, from the couple years it came out digitally in Comixology Originals, then to Mad Cave's print version, like AI is just, and what I've thought about it, AI has changed so much, like from just, again, living in LA, just seeing the little delivery carts that go around, seeing Waymo, which is this driverless car thing, which still freaks me out when I don't see somebody in the driver's seat. And then, but more importantly, again, having my friends who are artists, have to really have the fear of God put into them, because their work is literally being stolen by things like Midjourney and all these other stuff, where it's a whole other ethical debate, but it's like it's hitting home in real ways. But when you mentioned the girlfriend thing, it's one of the big influences on it to me was the movie Her, the Spike Jonze movie, and I remember thinking, I was like, this is much more terrifying to me than like a Terminator Judgment Day scenario. in part because I feel like, I much more fear my heart being broken than, I guess, nuclear Armageddon. I can just completely see myself being, I can just, the AI is just getting better and better. Like, I can completely see myself getting taken, like maybe not right now, but in like 5 years. Like, not that would be seeking that out, but I feel like, I've been scammed by humans. Now, I could just see the same thing happening and just my heart getting broken.
Oh no,
that's so sweet, and it's very funny that your biggest dystopian fear is getting your heart broken. Your Coke bottle bar mitzvah heartbroken.
I want to take a little bit of a swerve, and this is only tangentially related in terms of being sci-fi, but Marc G, just because it's top of mind, and I'm going to give a spoiler warning here for anybody. This is a little round the way for the TV show Peacemaker, but recently on the TV show Peacemaker, they revealed this big twist that everybody's freaking out about, where they revealed Earth X. We were talking about it in our Patreon Discord a little bit, and people were wondering, because we guessed this weeks ago on the show, were wondering, how does everybody know Earth X? I don't understand. This is such a deep cut comic book thing. And I immediately said, the Arrowverse. That's how people know it. They know it from Crisis on Earth X, which I legitimately think, and this is not like blowing up your spot or anything, is one of the best comic book movies of all time. It's just
thank you very much.
So good. I mean, I know it's individual episodes in TV, but it's great. So this is a roundabout way of saying, like, what do you think it is that is so sticky, not just about Crisis on Earth X, that clearly had captured all of these fans for years from now, but the concept of Earth X in general?
Well, I think the answer is pretty simple. We're living on Earth X now. And I think that is, that resonates with people. It's funny, like I just watched Downfall. If you ever see those Hitler Reacts movies, clips on YouTube, it's from this movie Downfall. And, the whole idea of, sort of either the rise or fall of fascism, depending upon what my mood is I think it's very resonant right now. It's probably more resonant, now than at any point in my life, in all of our lives. So I think that's why it's re-entered the zeitgeist.
And what do you think it is specifically about Crisis on Earth X that worked as a crossover?
That's a good question. I'll tell you, it was. It's a good question. The whole. I feel like the story certainly worked, but at the end of the day, like all those episodes, all those crossovers really came down to the directors that we hired. If you get a bad cut, or if I get a bad cut of a crossover episode, it's a real bummer, because there's only so much you can do to try to fix it. And every director just knocked it out of the park with Crisis on Earth X. And I think also the other thing that was I think successful about it is that it wasn't the first time we were what I call show agnostic, where we were doing the crossover without regard to, this is the Flash episode, this is the Legends episode, this is the Arrow episode, but we took the sort of show agnostic approach of Invasion, which was the previous year's crossover, and just pushed it all the way. Like, we got rid of the title treatments for each individual show, and we did a specific Crisis on Earth X logo, as I recall. It felt like it was all designed to link together like one big massive movie. And I think I hadn't seen that tried on television before, or since, for that matter. So I was very enamored with the way all the pieces came together.
Well, thank you for that. To loop it back to the sci-fi books, though, and start to wrap this up a little bit, you all have a ton of different projects that you're working on. So I'd love to hear about them. Anything you want to plug, anything people should be checking out for you. Matt, why don't we start with you?
Stuff I'm working on, like currently developing?
Anything you want to plug.
Okay. Well, Outer Lands probably is the biggest thing I should be plugging here today. But,
there you go.
But I got a series at NBC called Nowhere, based on a short story of mine. That's in development for this season, as well as Eden at Fox for this season. I got a reimagining of Dracula for Amazon as an animated series, also in development, also in January. And just sold a reimagining of The Land That Time Forgot as a feature. So that's also kind of
very cool.
floating around out there. So yeah, those are the kind of things I'm busy with right now.
That's a lot of things. Thank you, man. Mark S., what about you?
So yeah, obviously, so Boxed, I'm really proud of. Jeremy did a great job. It's worth it for the art alone. I'd love to plug 2 other things. So I have another book from Mad Cave coming out in early November that you can pre-order now. It's called Circus Maximus, and it's a heist set in ancient Rome. It's going to be a 5-issue limited series. I'm Giorgio Pontrelli is the artist from it. So again, an actual Roman. He's Italian who lives in Rome to write it, to draw it. It's something I'm super proud of. And then just completely to give a completely other genre that I'm working in. If I did a book that I kickstarted with Chris Anderson called Chaotic Neutral, which is a combination of a fantasy comic, and it also has a Dungeons and Dragons adventure module in it.
Oh, cool.
So if you like nerd stuff, you're getting kind of a lot of that packed into one. If you just Google Chaotic Neutral Marc Sable, you'll find that you can still get it on BackerKit and other places. So, but yeah, thank you.
Awesome. And Mark G., what about you?
Well, first of all, I got this get this out of my system and make sure I get it in under the wire. Marc Sable, I love your comic book, Mike Grell's Marc Sable. I don't know what you had to do with it, but it's a great book. I loved it when I was growing up. Well, I have 2 more books coming out through Comixology, but they're not announced yet, so I don't feel like I can plug them yet. I'm still publishing and writing Spider-Man and Wolverine for Marvel, as well as Star Wars Jedi Knights for Marvel. Nice. I'm actually here in the offices of a new animated project that I'm doing with Netflix, but again, hasn't been announced. So much of my plate right now is stuff that just hasn't been announced.
You're a futurist. You're a futurist.
Yeah, it's like I'm just working on stuff, especially with animation. Like it's going to be a while before anyone comes out.
Takes time.
My wife and I are working on an animated pilot of a really beloved franchise, which is really exciting. Very soon I'll start writing the script for the feature version of Last Flight Out.
Awesome.
Great.
Well, guys, thank you so much for coming on. Thank you for talking about sci-fi. Everybody should check out all of these books on Comixology because all of them are awesome for real. Thank you guys so much. We'll see you in the future.
Yeah, thanks for all your great work.
Thank you.
I'm good at intros and I'm great at outros.
It sounds like another kick outro right there. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Have a good night. All right, there we go. I will plug these books again, even though they just did. But Matt Arnold, you can check out Outer Lands and Eden. Marc Sable, Boxed, and Marc Guggenheim, The Adventures of Ulysses Monarch. Issue number 5 is out today, so you can read the whole series there. And though she wasn't able to make it on, do check out Taki Soma's Alienated, also on Comixology. It's a lot of fun as well. And thank you to all those guys. And now, thank you to you guys for coming up with our next section. It's our favorite section. It is Audience Question.
Question.
My question is, was there a drink? I thought Stray Bullet was plugging.
There was. I'm gonna bring it up now. Great tee up, Pete. While we wait for some questions, great tea. Drop that tea, Pete. While we wait for questions, Stray Bullet, a.k.a. Brett Macris, a.k.a. Stray...
Bullies?
Thank you. There you go. I got it. I thought that was.
I like that Stray Bullet has become his given name, and we've sort of starting to refer to his alias.
Sometimes I call him Stray. Yeah.
In any case, every week on the show, he either creates or curates a drink for us. And this week he had a sci-fi drink, which is that a Cylon in your pocket, or are you just happy to beam me?
You see what he did there?
Love it. I love it.
Legitimately love it. Do you get it, though?
It is tequila, blue curacao, Saint Germain elderflower liqueur, and a lime juice. Of course, the blue curacao there is to give it that sci-fi blue look. And
all sci-fi drinks are blue, as we've seen in 40 years of television and movies.
Yep.
And I went to the Star Wars Cantina, and they go way out of the way to be like, it's crazy how this drink looks, right? And it's really just like tequila and sugar thing.
Yeah. Is any of that stuff good? I haven't been there, and I'm just sort of like, I don't believe that any of it is like, wow, this actually tastes like I'm on Tatooine.
Let me say that I guess I've never talked about it on here. That place is a blast. We went. Oh. My sister is like a Disney head, and she booked everything in for us. So we had a 11 a.m. Reservation at the Cantina. We had 4 kids with us, my wife and I, and her guy, and we drank. You only get 45 minutes there, and we sucked down 3 cocktails each. It was very expensive. But they were good. Some of them were a little like, this one's trying a little hard, but in general, they are good cocktails. And there's a droid DJing the entire time.
Oh, come on.
Sweet.
DJ Droid on the ones
that
and twos.
segues nicely into our first question here from Schweikler. If you could go back in time and throw your younger self a huge party, what would the theme be? And I assume the answer is DJ Robot Party the entire time.
I mean, that would be cool. I mean, this is an interesting question because like it's a very much a like if I knew then what I know now when I was younger style question. Would you try to inject some knowledge into your...
My theme would be 2025 sports scores.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Wow, very specific sci-fi, low stakes.
No,
sci-fi.
I think if I was going to do a theme, it would probably be I'd throw myself like a labyrinth party or something. That would be pretty sweet.
Labyrinth. Ooh, very like sort of sexual.
Yeah, it would be a sexual younger self party. Exactly.
Yeah, really good. That's a tough one. I never had any real themed parties. I feel like that's a more now thing to do for kids.
Oh.
I don't know, but if you could go back in time and throw your younger self a party, what would it be?
I guess it would just be like, because I got beaten up for wearing nerdy things, it would be like, it's going to be okay party. Like, yeah, you got torn apart for this stuff, but eventually people think it's cool, so it'll be worth it. Party.
Maybe you could go around and beat up all the bullies with like a gang.
Oh, that would be the best.
I guess a podcasting party.
You would do the old, reverse, I forgot the name of the villain from, forgot the callback.
I was just going to say I was going to take back my 2025
Hannibal
sports
Lecter.
scores
reverse
joke
Hannibal
because if I did that, I would have to wait so long for that to pay off.
Yeah, I would go with more 2000.
Yeah, exactly, like 1999, something like that.
Schweikler has a question. Alex, do you know any 2025 sports scores now? In the year we're in.
I'd look them up before I travel back in time and throw myself a party.
Okay.
I'm not just going to travel back in time and throw myself a party without planning it.
You'd be like, the Bills are great. Oh, man.
It'd be amazing if you set yourself up to become fabulously rich, but then couldn't figure out gambling.
I definitely can.
You
Same
can.
thing with stock prices. I'd be like, I don't know what this means.
Oh, boy.
Anyway, I am not financially stable. LinkedIn,
It's a weird
you
kind
hear
of
that?
nerd.
Yeah, LinkedIn, you listening? We clearly need help.
They were going to give you a job, but then they took it away after that comment. Yeah.
Straight Bullet says, in the age of digital comics, what is collecting? I feel like this is a very specific reference to a discussion we've been having in our Patreon Discord. Justin, you were about to jump in.
Justin,
I think
you collect gestures.
You collect them in your brain. You collect the stories in your brain. That's where I keep
The
them.
old spank bank?
Nope. Nope. It's a story bank, Pete.
Oh, okay. My bad.
It's a thank bank because it's full of.
We've talked
things
about
you're
this
thanking.
a lot, and I know he's kind of being jokey here, but they've found pretty definitively that people reading digital comics doesn't cut down on buying of comics, and I assume
That doesn't seem. How can that be true?
It's not. It's true though. Like I don't think it's clearly been applicable the same way to the music industry, which was decimated by digital.
Yeah.
But for comics, people will read stuff digitally and they'll be like, oh, I want to own that and read it again and put it on my shelf. Or they'll read like the first 6 issues on Marvel Unlimited and then be like, oh, I'll pick up the next trade or something like that. So I think part of it is that the comic book industry is much smaller than the music industry. So there's less of a stretch there, but it hasn't affected things at all.
Well, let me say, as someone who I don't really have as much physical media of comics these days, it has made me collect more original art and things like that, which is just more exciting from a going to cons and getting stuff point of view.
Yeah. Stanley says, speaking of cons, are you all going to New York Comic Con? Is the con still fun?
I am going to New York Comic Con. I'm very excited.
As you can tell from your T-shirt.
Yeah, that's
New York Comic Con T-shirt on.
This is a New York Comic Con 2012
Oh, what a year.
T-shirt.
Oh, remember those were happier times.
Yeah. Same. Everything's the same, Pete, when you think about it. I think the con's fun. It's there's a lot of people there. That's just the thing. And there's probably more people, and so that it's a little more congested maybe, but I think Artist Alley is just as fun as it always is, I think.
Yeah, Artist Alley is a blast.
Yeah, I will also be there. I actually don't know what days at this point, but I think all 4 days, maybe.
I will be there for sure Thursday, Friday.
Okay, and Pete, you are not coming because
I am
somewhere else. Where is that?
Yeah, I'm going to be somewhere else. Thank you for that. But yeah, you should try to, as someone Schweikler put it out, Alex, you should try to get a job at the New York Comic Con.
Oh, great. I'll just do that. I'll press the flesh. Yes, I'll just back up Artist Alley. We talked about this last year, but it hasn't really felt like this before. Last year, and I'm hoping it's like that this year, it was its own mini convention. It was that huge. That's where all the comic book people were hanging out because it was in like a weird basement of the convention center, but it was so enormous it kind of didn't matter. It was like the size of a smaller con all on its own. So yeah, I don't know. I have a fun time. I'm a little panicked looking at my schedule because they also amped up the amount of panels and interesting panels this year. Like, I feel like the past, honestly, like since the beginning of COVID and even a little bit before that, like it's sort of petered down a little. Sorry.
What the fuck?
I know. I heard it.
Pete,
When I was,
that is something people say.
It petered down. Like it was really cool.
That's not a.
No, that's a phrase that I use to mean it's really cool.
I don't use things that hurt your feelings, guys. So please stop.
I think that one was genuinely an accident.
It really was. It really was. Yeah, and if you can come up with a hurtful thing that Alex Down or Justin Down means, feel free.
Just in time, I get that a lot, and it makes me so mad.
And people keep coming out to me and saying, "Alex, cool." I don't know what that means, though.
That's not what they say.
Sure. In any case, the amount of panels have really decreased in recent years. Last year, even, I was like, "Oh, I don't have too much that I need or want to go to." And this year, my schedule is just like, if I actually go to everything, I'm not going to stop from like 10 a.m. to 9 p.m.
Fun.
So,
what about interviews, Alex? You can do some
interviews. We're going to be doing a couple of interviews. Man. I'll tell you about them later.
Yeah.
But yeah, started to set up interviews. Everybody's also, I will say, running very late this con. Like, they announced the panels probably a month and a half ago, and every single thing is like, yeah, get back to me later. And now it's starting to, the panic is starting to set in. Yeah. Do we have any other questions? I don't believe we do, so it is time to move to our next section, which is trivia. And for that, we're going to turn it over to Pete LePage.
All right. This is the part we give back to you, the lovely audience. It's an opportunity to win $25 free to Midtown Comics online. Because if you had $25, why wouldn't you go to a comic book shop and get some comics?
I don't know. Maybe if you get digital comics, you just don't care about print comics anymore. You know, Pete?
Oh man. Well, that's what we're part of the problem. We're giving you.
We've always been part of the problem. You could go get a Funko Pop.
Ooh, David Quinley says B.
All right.
Yes, get a Funko Pop.
Funko.
You might even be able to get two for $25. Honestly.
Well, isn't that fun?
Honestly, you could tell me those things cost almost any number. I'd be like, checks out.
Yeah.
All right. Well, today's trivia is about the Department of Truth and a small nod to the legend, Terrence Stamp, R.I.P. to General Zod. Please listen to all three options before making your selection. Here we go. Question number one.
Almost fell for it, Alex.
I almost did. He almost got me.
Are you okay? Are you guys any thoughts from the peanut gallery, or can we move on?
No, just go ahead.
Peanuts.
Excited
Eating
to
peanuts.
hear this trivia.
All right, great. Question number 1. Who puts out this amazing comic, Department of Truth? Is it A, Image? B, what do your initials stand for? Please be work appropriate. C, B.J. Parker.
Nice. Well, I didn't even realize Terrence Stamp died.
Yeah.
But there he is.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. When did he die?
July.
August 17th.
Oh, okay.
Maybe he started dying a little earlier, but then that.
I thought it said July, but...
You know what I saw the other day? I don't want to call out the paper or anything, but somebody posted Josh Hartnett in a car accident. And I was like, oh no, that's terrible. And I clicked open the article, and it was like 5 paragraphs of how he got into this car accident before they got to like, it happened yesterday. He was sent to the hospital just in case, and he's already back on set and is fine. And I was like, what are we doing here?
You fell for the clickbait, bro.
That's-
I fell for the clickbait. I hate it.
did.
I hate that anybody does that.
Well,
Like,
you're the
You
problem.
love Josh Hartnett.
Yeah,
I do
They
love
know
Josh
they love you. Love Josh, and you're going to click on anything.
All I'm saying is like,
He'll click on anything, Alex. But
you could say Josh Hartnett okay after car crash versus Josh Hartnett in car crash, which is
David, to end this
and
rant,
gross.
you just write.
I just want
A
people
in the
to
chat
write articles
so we
that say Josh Hartnett alive.
question
David
mark.
Quinley, please don't give up on us. We need you to write A, so the story about Alex's life stops. Please.
Do you guys want to hear about some other headlines I read?
Oh, are they Hartnett based? If you have any more Hartnett,
Yes. He said A. Thank God, Quinley. Oh my God,
really good. I had to think
Killing
about
me.
it.
Killing me here. Things that Alex are bothers old man Zelman. I was clicking on this thing the other day. All right, here we go. Question number 2. Who writes this tripped
some
out
peanuts.
but super enjoyable comic, Department of Truth? Is it A, JT4? B, okay then, Spence, what is your last name again? C, Spencer Caden.
Boy, oh boy. Here, let's just take a look at this for a second, okay? So take a look. I'm just searching for Josh Hartnett here, right? Okay.
Alex is
What is
becoming a
happening?
citizen journalist right now.
All I'm saying is, like, look at these headlines. You have Josh Hartnett hospitalized after car crash with police vehicle while in Canada filming Netflix series. If you use those many words in your headline, one of them could be "is okay" or something.
Quinley said,
How about-
hey, we can move
How about
on.
TMZ's "See All the Wreckage"? Is their
Gross.
headline? Jesus.
Yeah, at least
I'm starting to think that TMZ's up to no good.
I'm going to give a shout out though to USA Today, who says Josh Hartnett back to work after car accident that caused significant damage. Though they imply he had significant. I think they're talking significant damage to the car. So you know what? I take it back. I take it back. This is all
Wow.
terrible.
Yeah, think
Alex
about the car.
takes away his backing of USA Today.
I'm sorry.
Here we go.
Here we go. Think about
Question
the car,
number
says
3.
Pete.
Question
Great
number 3.
humanitarian Pete.
Out of the 3 of us, and before you start, Alex, yes, this is still very trivia. Who loves Department of Truth the most? Is it A, JT Says? B, yeah, no one saw that coming. What a shocking favorite color reveal, Phil, you non-creative motherfucker. C, Philip Green.
And I'm looking at all these headlines. They're all just Josh Hartnett hospitalized after a scary car crash with cops. Here we go. This is interesting. Josh Hartnett's underrated 18-year-old vampire movie is coming to Peacock next month. Wonder what that is. Do you know what it is?
Quinley, right
This is
A,
actual
please.
trivia. What is it? What
It's
movie
called-
is that?
Quinley, save us, Quinley.
Is it the one he was hospitalized for doing?
David, don't
No,
leave
this
the
is
show.
Josh. This is actual trivia versus whatever the fuck Pete's been doing.
Look,
Josh
David Quinley's
Hartnett's-
weighing in.
David Quinley, yes, A is correct.
Vampire
Oh,
movie.
man. Trivia's over. Oh, man.
I bet
no idea.
Scheuchler can figure out what this is. Here, I'll give it to you guys again. It's an IMDb headline. It says Josh Hartnett's underrated 18-year-old vampire movie is coming to Peacock next month.
years old.
What is it?
Oh, of course, it's 30 Days of Night.
Yes! Thank you. There you go.
Didn't even have to look it up,
That's
gang.
so weird. It felt really weird to be doing trivia relevant to the podcast.
Weird. In case you were wondering, all of the C answers were a reference to the 2011 thriller and sometimes rom-com Adjustment Bureau.
Sometimes rom-com.
That's how I remember.
And that's how trivia is done.
Yeah. And now just And just to check, Terrence Stamp, was he in anything else that might have been relevant to our podcast at all?
Yeah. I already gave
why?
a shout out to General Zod, so go F yourself.
Never. Unless I could travel back in time and throw myself in that party. That's the theme.
There you go. Now we figured it out.
Didn't we have an audience question about whether or not we would go back based on Peacemaker? Whether we would go to another dimension and have sex with ourselves?
What?
Oh. I think that was in the Discord, actually.
Yes, correct.
What?
And real quick, Pete?
No.
Maybe just a little kissing.
What? You want to kiss yourself?
With tongue or without tongue?
Oh my God, Justin.
I don't know. I mean, just got to say hello. See what's I got to call my shot.
All I'd say is I'd take myself out to dinner first and see where things go.
That's nice. What a gentleman.
Pete, anything you want to?
Yeah, what I would like to circle back to something that I was thinking about. I mean, yes, Star Wars was the big sci-fi thing, but my first sci-fi encounter was Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. That's what really sci-fi blew my mind.
That's a good call. Mine was Kurt Vonnegut's writing, but
yeah, you were a Kurt
Hitchhiker's Guide is right after that. So that's good. I found it interesting with our guests that one of them said it was fiction first when they were writing, the other science, and then Mark Sable in the middle was like, I am a sci-fi character.
Yeah, he was like, actually, I'm living a sci-fi
I'm a government futurist.
Yeah. I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah. Well, what the fuck is that there's new comic books coming out tomorrow. Let's talk about what we're looking forward to. Pete.
Oh my God, there's a lot of great comics that I'm looking forward to. I tell you what, Batgirl number 12. I mean, this continues to be such a badass story. I love the, as Justin calls it, the mind humping, where you get inside the character's head a little bit.
I don't say those words.
Kind of get to understand how they think. Starship Godzilla. You had me at Godzilla. Excited to see what this is about, and I'll save Adventure Time for Justin.
Oh, Adventure Time. Yes, I do like that as well. I want to shout out the author Immortal #1 from Image Comics by Frank Barbieri. That book looks really interesting. It feels topical based on what I read about it in a cool way. Something, maybe a difficult topic to write about, but I am excited to see if they can pull it off over there. And then I'm going to shout out a little corner of the universe, of the Dark Horse Comics universe I've been really liking. Minor Threats, The Last Devil Left Alive, #1, written by Patton Oswalt and Jordan Bloom. That has been such a fun little pocket lately. And they're making a lot of books in that world, so shouts to
sweet pocket.
that. And, of course, we are kicking off the Age of Revelation tomorrow, so...
It has begun. A couple of things I'm looking forward to on top of what you guys said. I'll give a shout out to Absolute Evil #1 from DC Comics. This has been hyped up a lot, bringing together the villains of the Absolute Universe. I am looking forward to Adventure Time, the Bubline College Special. That is a one-shot written and drawn by Caroline Cash.
I didn't say it.
Recent guest on the show.
Yeah. So check it out. And then, I think that's probably it. You guys talked over the only thing I ever cared about.
Wow, Alex doesn't even like that many comics.
Yeah, Alex doesn't.
We got a stack of one.
I don't really like them anymore.
Wow.
Anyway,
that
is it for this week's show. A couple of people we want to thank. We want to thank Matt Arnold for coming on to talk about Outer Lands and Eden. Marc Sable for talking about Box. Marc Guggenheim for talking about the Adventures of Ulysses Monarch. You can check out all of those books and many more on Comixology. Next week on the show, Coy Jandreau is going to be here from the DC Studios Showcase podcast to talk about everything that goes on with that. Zach Quaintance is going to be back on the show to talk about Macabre Valley. And Daryl D. Spivey will be here to talk about The Last Ranger. Also, other podcasts you can check out: Comic Book Club News, our daily news podcast Monday through Friday every morning. Sons of a Gun, our DC podcast currently recapping Peacemaker. Let's hear it for the boys. Our boys at Gen V podcast talking about episodes of Gen V as they hit. Marvel Vision, we just had an episode talking about Marvel Zombies. Patreon.com/Comic Book Club for ad-free versions of this podcast and many more. ComicBookClubLive.com for this podcast and other things. Until next time, we'll see you at the Comic Book Club.
Good night, everybody.
Take care of yourself. We need you out there.
So grab your written hammer, don't be late for it, 'cause their girlfriends can barely tolerate it. Comic book club, comic book club, comic book
And I did forget to mention, but I'll plug here on the stream at least, this Saturday, October 4th at 9 a.m., we're going to be live streaming our DCKO bracket. We're going to choose who we think is going to win or who we want to win based on the 32 contenders of the upcoming event. So please come watch. If you're free, it's early on Saturday morning, but we thought it'd be fun.
No
to
pressure,
stream it.
but we'd be down to take some comments as we're going, because it's probably going to be an argument in some capacity.
Just a scotch. Yeah. But it should be a fun one, so tune in then. Good night, everybody.
Later.